What's going on, Colts Nation? It's Elijah from Sports Talk Indy, where we cover all things Indianapolis Colts every single day. It's no surprise that the Colts are looking more likely to trade back than trade up. That is just the Chris Ballard nature. But I think that it would be very interesting to see where they would go. And so there's 5 potential candidates that I've looked at that it looks like the Colts could trade down with, including some that I think would be you could get a pretty good haul for pick 15. I think the Colts, based on who they're meeting with in their initial pro days and top 5 visits and who they sent the most people to, it definitely looks as if the Colts are going to either address the cornerback position or they're going to address the wide receiver position. They haven't met with a lot of people outside of those. They have some top 30 visits, and we'll go through those here in just a moment. But who are the Colts looking to get? And I think that if the top cornerbacks, the top defensive backs, if Cooper DeJean is out, if Quinion Mitchell, if Taron Arnold, I would say that Cooper is a little bit, he's a wild card. And the only reason I say that is because of his injury. He just was cleared to play football like 2 weeks ago. And so he's having his pro day coming up, I think, on April 8th, which is, that's today. So he probably has his pro day today. I don't know if the Colts will be in attendance. But anyways, if Quinion Mitchell and Taron Arnold are off the board at 15, then I think that you look and see, okay, if that's where the Colts are going to go, then you can look and see and trade back. And then the same thing with wide receiver. If your guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. And Malik Neighbors are out, then I think that you can look at potentially trading back. If they're still available, trade up, get them. I think that would be a great deal. But if they're not, here are 5 scenarios where the Colts can trade back with. The first one would be only 3 picks back, and you would get a 4th round pick. You would get a 3rd round, early 3rd round. I mixed up Colts receive and Colts get. So Colts would receive pick 18, so you're only trading back 3 spots, and you would get pick 80. And then the Bengals would receive pick 15 and pick 151. So we would trade a 4th or 5th round pick. It would be a 5th round pick to get a second or a 1st and a 3rd, which I think is a great deal. I think it's to get a 3rd, especially Ballard drafts really well in later rounds. Weirdly, he doesn't draft really well in early rounds as much, but drafts really well in late rounds. It's a weird thing for him. The next one would be with the Steelers. The Steelers need some help in a lot of areas as they're trying to bolster this offense around 2 quarterbacks who you're getting remarkably cheap. I think the total that they're paying for Justin Fields and Russell Wilson is like $3.2 million between the 2 of them. So extraordinarily cheap that you're paying for 2 quarterbacks, one of which will likely end up being the starter for a long time if the season plays out well. And so this one would be a pretty decent haul. The Colts would get pick 20, pick 84, and pick 119. The Steelers would receive pick 15 and 151. So again, we would trade that 151. And then the next one would be the Colts trade down to pick 22 with the Eagles. So again, only 2 picks back, 7 picks back from your initial pick. But you would get, again, a pretty decent haul. You would get pick 22 and 53. And then you would get pick 15, 117, and 151. So you would get you would get a 1st back, and then you would get a late 2nd back, which I think would be a great deal. And then they would get like a 4th and a 5th round pick. So I think if there's someone that you're looking at that will be available at pick 53, I think that that's someone that you would look at. And again, Ballard drafts really well in these late 2nd, 3rd, 4th round picks. He does pretty well with that. And then the next one would be the Cowboys. This one, if they're all in, as they say they're all in, they got to be making moves. I can't imagine that they're going to be totally content with this. But yeah, this one would be you would get picks 24 and 56. So again, it's very similar to the trade before. And then the Cowboys would get 15 and 151. It's very similar to the trade that just happened that we were just talking about with the Eagles. The Cowboys would do the same thing. They're only 2 picks different. And then the last one would be that the Colts would receive pick 26 and 26, and 57, and the Buccaneers would pick 15. Again, these last 3 are very similar, except for the Bucs would not give or would not get a 3rd or a 4th round pick. But yeah, I think the most likely one would be someone like the Bengals to be able to trade up and get 3 extra picks. Bengals need help in that secondary. So I would guess it's somewhere along those lines where it's not going to be as dramatic as going from 15 to 26. But if this happened, who would the Colts be then targeting? Who would the Colts be going after in these later rounds? Again, the rounds where Ballard typically does well. Well, there are some top 30 visits coming up this week for some more under the radar candidates for the NFL draft, even some that for most people would projected to go undrafted. So the first one to look at is as Nook Bradford from TCU. He has a couple of pro day or a couple of top 30 visits with the Jaguars, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Colts, the Vikings, and the Dolphins. Uh, he's got a good resume. He's a two-time All Big 12 honoree, and he ran the second fastest of all safeties in the combine at 4.42. So I like this one. I like getting a safety. I like getting a guy like what we thought Isaiah Simmons was going to be, where he's going to be that safety and linebacker position, because I think that that's going to play really well to the Colts defense and really well to how they like to play things. So, but yeah, getting a guy like this who can run a 4.4 40 is awesome. I think that would be a really good one. Another one is Travis Glover from Georgia State. And then I have his Travis Glover. Yeah, he's 6'6", 323. There's not a lot of like highlights on him. He looks good. That's the type of thing. I think the Colts should in later rounds go for something on the right side. You got Will Fries and you got Braden Smith, and Braden Smith is great when healthy, but he's even still now listed on the depth chart currently as questionable. So I think that this would be one that if you can bolster this right side of the offensive line and just get some, even if they're not guys that you're going to get that are going to be like your constant starters, but get guys in the third and fourth round that can be some offensive linemen that can really add some depth to this position, especially as you're trying to protect your young quarterback and allow him the opportunity to do what he wants and not be forced anywhere. So I think that getting an offensive tackle will be really good, like Travis Glover. The next one would be Isaac Guerendo from Louisville. They actually went to his local pro day visit, not far. Louisville's only like three and a half hours away from Indy, so I think this is a pretty easy one. But he ran a 4.43. He is one of the fastest running backs that came out in the combine. So I think that this is a good, fun one that if you can get him in the fourth round or even fifth round and get a late guy to help back up Jonathan Taylor, I think is really good. Just moving right along these, Jamal Hill, linebacker, safety out of Oregon. A lot of people have him going undrafted, but again, if you can get a guy who's a linebacker and safety who can do, again, what we thought Isaiah Simmons was going to be really good at, I think would be a really good, you would fill two birds with one stone. You would fill two needs at once, especially if you play in the nickel. Then you have a guy who can kind of cover a more wider range of where the Colts are going to need to cover, because everyone else added wide receivers to this offseason. So, and then lastly, Giovanni Manu, offensive lineman from UBC. I watched his highlights. There wasn't anything wildly impressive. He does a lot of, not holding, but, really just kind of like shoving guys to the ground. That was like the majority of what he did that did well. But he also played in UBC, and there's not a lot of, didn't have to face a lot. And this one's my favorite. This one is if you're getting a guy in the second or third round and you can't get one of your top cornerbacks, DeAndre Prince, cornerback out of Ole Miss, I think is my favorite. And I have his combine stuff pulled up here. His prospect grade is 5.86, which isn't bad. Athleticism score is an 83, so that's kind of lower on the Ballard scale of the RAS. But his 40-yard dash is a 4.3, which is great for a cornerback. 10-yard split 1.4, vertical jump 34.5, and broad jump 10.5. I think that this would be a really good pick for the Colts if you can get him in a later round, especially if you're going wide receiver with this first pick. So if you can get to 26 and then you can get pick 51 or 56 or 57 or whatever in there, and you can get a guy like Prince, I think that'd be really good, and I would really like to see that. And again, guys that they've invested so much time in, guys like Xavier Worthy, if you're going to miss out on the first three, you have the widest draft class of the last like 50 years in wide receiver and cornerback. Now, granted, we know a lot of them will be bust, but this is a big deal, and I think that like if you can get both in the second round or late first round, instead of having to get one generational talent, if you can get two that you really are confident in, then I think this would be a good. And again, especially we all kind of have this sneaking suspicion that this could be Ballard's last year. That this is like you either make or break. You got your quarterback, you got your guys, You were kind of conservative in the offseason, didn't sign any big name guys. Um, if this is what you're going to do and you're betting on the draft, then I think that this is what you got to do. And this is the master plan of Chris Ballard. And time will tell if it plays out the way he thinks, or if we're going to be looking for a new GM next offseason. So thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.